Okay, tonight, I don't know how we're going to make this work, but we're going to try to make it work, because we're
we can improvise.
Content.
Come on now.
We're really short on what?
Content.
Oh, well, I mean, we don't need to do for that long.
what are you talking about? We're short on content.
Wait, did you just say we don't need to do the show for that long? Yeah, we'll just do 15 minutes of it. Everyone say hi to Tom. Hi, Tom.
We'll just tell people that it's an hour. It's not like they'll actually check.
Tom and I can argue for an hour if it needs to come to that. I mean,
We really could.
pretty sure we could pull it off.
You know what time it is. Welcome to the Trinity Force Podcast. Optimus Tom, resident AP, plays mid and his styles are shady. Got a syndrome, can't nerf it. You can find him in the chat, type of worth it. And that's Hornet, stuck in evil hell. Thought it was going up, once again it fell. Never spent a single dime alone, and if you step into his jungle, expect a brawl. Auslander, math specialist, he's precise, doesn't tolerate estimates. The man's addicted as every hero, you can tell cause his bank account's stuck at zero. And last but not least, your host Pornophobia, picks an 80 carry, and he's on ya. He's got the full mouth, ground and pound, don't get excited, it's not as sexy as it sounds. That's your whole team, enjoy the podcast. Put your headphones on, we'll have a blast. We're checking email and Twitter, of course, just don't ask us how four guys make a Triforce.
Thanks for listening to the Trinity Force Podcast, brought to you by Audible.com, your premier website for audiobook downloads. Are you interested in trying Audible? Head on over to www.audibletrial.com/tforcepodcast to sign up for a 30-day, no-question-asked free trial of Audible. If you sign up using the aforementioned URL, you will instantly gain 1 free credit, which will allow you to download such books as Game of Thrones, The Hunger Games, or any Stephen King novel.
That was supposed to be my
Hey guys,
segue.
welcome to the Trinity Force Podcast. This is episode number 42. This is the official podcast at ggchronicle.com. Of course, my name is Pornophobia. I am your awesome host for this evening. I am joined by 4 amazing guys. We're going to start from the top left, as I see Hornet AJC is with us this week.
Oh, shit. First interviewed. Damn, that's awesome.
Damn, normally
More
you're
important
last.
than you, Optimus Tom.
Yeah, whatever.
Optimus Tom is with us.
Yeah, I'm here. Not as important as Hornet.
Yeah, you know what? You're never with us because of these prize fights and other crap you're doing, so we just try to ignore anything that you talk about. So that's why we
fine.
go. That's why we move on to Auslander.
Hey everybody. Yeah, we're trying to see if Bad Administrator will shoehorn in Soter over Optimus Tom.
Soter, Resident AP, plays Korka and Janna. It's easy. There you go.
Oh man,
Except for he could actually talk and not say "please, Corky."
cool.
Listen, I'm drinking Yoo-Hoo at the same time. I got like a Yoo-Hoo juice box. I feel like the only thing to drink in my house right now is alcohol or Yoo-Hoo, and I don't feel like drinking alcohol anymore.
Yeah,
So I have Yoo-Hoo.
You were all out of Capri Sun, I guess. You had to go to the
Listen. If I had Ecto Cooler, I would be drinking Ecto Cooler, but I don't.
Cooler.
So
He's gonna go get himself a little high C or what was one of the old like
high C.
Yeah.
Yeah.
no the tall little ones that were like sour. They're
Just listen to the dog. It
I
knows.
don't know.
I'm
You
gonna
must-
mute that out. So Tira's with us as
Yes,
well.
I am, and definitely the least important. I think I'm normally the last person introduced as well. I want to see a swap up on this. I guess I have to be cold earlier on it to be in the right spot to be introduced. I don't even know. But I'm very excited to be here, as everyone else is, and even the members who weren't invited.
Like the dog.
Yes, like the puppy.
This is gonna be the worst thing ever. Good thing we're recording our audio individually because
Eris!
I can't get her to shut up right now, guys. So you have to hold on a second.
Oh, poor dog.
This is how I met the Banhammer playing Street Fighter 4, and I'm just hearing his dog bark in the background and him screaming.
No, that's
at him.
right.
Eris! Eris!
Okay, she's done. We can move on with the podcast. Oh, nothing like making extra work for me. So, you know what else is extra work for me? Putting voicemails into this podcast. We got a pretty good one this week. Did you guys listen to it?
Maybe.
I did.
Indeed.
So Tier did not listen.
Do we have to listen? I thought you wrote it out for us. I'm very confused.
He too long didn't read it right there, so you're fine.
He can listen to it right now as I play it. So here we go. And that'd be the voicemail that came in this week. Unfortunately, I didn't write your name down, so I do apologize, Summoner from the NA, that I don't remember your name. But to sum it up, he's asking what would happen if you had a champion that got different amounts of gold for assists or kills or CS, like everything you did in the game gave you different amounts of gold. So I'm going to leave that open to my panel of 4 guys and let one of you pick it up and run from there.
In your last podcast, you talked quite a bit about how Riot can't make a strong AP support or AP jungler without that champion being better in mid lane as AP carry. And I think that's pretty logical. I think there might be a mechanic Riot can manipulate to make that happen. So in 2 words, gold ratios. Imagine a new AP champion that received far less gold from lane minions than it did from jungle minions. Perhaps not something as dramatic as a 1.2 gold from jungle minions versus a 0.8 from standard lane minions, but something along those lines. By introducing gold ratios for certain champions, Riot could have a completely new lever to tweak when balancing things out. So if you decided a particular AD carry was too tanky and was dominating the scene, perhaps a slight shaving off of their gold ratios could keep them tanky, to cause them to bloom later in the game off dragon and tower gold. This might be a viable alternative to making them squishy. Adjusting the amount of gold that different champions get from lane minions, jungle minions, kills, assists, towers, or dragons can make for some interesting new play angles. Can you imagine a support or jungle champion that got more gold from assists than it did from kills? Or a champion that got significant gold, or the equivalent of gold for 10 buffs, based on how many towers were up or down? I think it could add some interesting new mechanics. Thanks. Someone named Beardbane from North.
Well, I think it's an interesting sort of unexplored area. Well, not really. I shouldn't say unexplored, as I think Tom wrote in the notes here. Like TF kind of has something, GP, Gangplank does, and Ashe does as well, where they have abilities that give you more gold. I mean, it's an unexplored area. I could see it maybe working, but without really putting tons of time and thought into it. Like, for instance, say the jungler, like one of the suggestions was the jungler would get more gold from jungle creeps than he would from lane creeps. And a lot of times you'll see junglers sort of cover lanes, and I think that maybe that would lead towards a jungler that just never leaves the jungle. Like, the optimal jungle play would be to clear your side and maybe even counter jungle and just never, gank, or not really being available to cover lanes if someone has to go back or whatever.
Oh, so it'd be the perfect jungle for Hornet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All farm all the time.
I'd ignore all of you fools.
Yeah, but you couldn't go to a lane though and farm it. So I mean, it wouldn't be worth your time.
Can't go bottom lane whenever.
Well, I don't steal farm from lane anyway. Like it's never something I've done. You at least give me the credit for that one.
Well, I'm not saying you steal it. I'm saying when there's open farm, Hornet's on his way.
When you're covering a lane and no one is nearby, you'll want to go in, you'll soak up the experience, push the lane out so it doesn't hit the tower and you don't lose experience, stuff like that.
Right. Let me say that when I first heard this, I thought, and by the way, I think it was Bearded Bane is his name. Mm-hmm. I looked at the first thing was it would change the game completely in my mind in that you could make it a specialty for anybody who went as a team and said, okay, I'm picking this role. Well, as this role, not only do you have runes to pick and summoner spells to pick, masteries, keeping my mouth full here, but now you'd have the ability to say what role you're picking and then having an advantage of something else going on. Now, I'd be changing the game a lot. But it would actually give the advantage to that particular role for any particular thing that you're doing. And I could actually see that working. I could actually see that coming to fruition if need be, where, say, you give the jungler... I'm going to say, you said more gold for the creeps. I'm going to say more experience because you get to level faster. I think it's a lot of times the issue with the jungler is that they end up being behind by levels if they're counter-jungled at any point. But also, you could say for supports that, they gain more XP from being around, rather than worrying about how many they kill since they don't get any CS at all, but they get more experience so that they stay on the same level, even if, say, they have to play more passive, like a Soraka who ends up being behind levels a lot of times. Like, I could see that working, but there's a lot of development in that would take a long time to balance, and I'm not sure exactly how long that would take or if Riot would even explore something like that.
I think that, to be completely honest, because the question really has to deal with the fact that, well, I believe the context was we were talking about how there are no real solid AP junglers, and then we had Diana, which we'll probably talk about a little bit later. But there were no solid AP junglers or support characters that wouldn't just be played in the mid lane and be equally as broken or more broken as well. I think one of the mechanics they really need to like re-explore, and this is going to be debatable by some people's standards. I think that they're going to have something like a skill that would have Gangplank's passive on his parlay, or if you kill someone using that skill, you get bonus gold. But I also think they need to revisit something along the lines of Evelyn's passive, where Evelyn's old passive used to be she took half damage from minions, but it didn't count for neutral creeps. Where if they had something on a player, like a character in the jungle that gave it some sort of advantage in the jungle, like took reduced damage from neutral creeps, or did bonus damage to neutral creeps, or something like that, like a Wriggle's Lantern proc or a Master Yi on his Alpha Strike, something that would give them a bonus that would want to have them relegated to the jungle as opposed to being in that mid lane role or something along the lines of that. I think you could explore possibilities along that way without having to tweak the experience and the gold and perhaps making it not viable outside of the jungle or less viable somewhere else or something like that.
Yeah, well, like Nunu kind of already has that because he's got his Q, which is worthless unless you're, fighting either. It's unless you're fighting neutral minions or, the opponent's minions. So it's kind of like that, I guess. But I think that's kind of why Nunu. He's good now. Currently, he's one of the better champs. But I think that's why he's kind of a tough champ, maybe for them to balance, because either since the Q does nothing, they have to sort of rebalance all of his other skills. And I don't know. It just, to me, you can do it obviously, but it's just a lot of effort to balance it.
Yeah, it's tough, but there's some other champions that don't have, abilities that really do all that much, and actually the only one that can come to mind is really Katarina, and of course they just fixed that. So she has a bunch of active skills that all do something, so I guess I'll take that off the table. But with Nunu, the funny thing is, he is viable in the jungle, but we're running into the same problem where if you put him into a solo lane, like the decrease in his passive, the amount of hits he has to get up, it's only 5, down from 7 I believe it was. Like that makes him really dominant in lane, and he doesn't have to push very hard to get his free spells, which means he can push out a lot of people, be a real big bully. And he was a bully in lane before, and that's one of the issues with Diana and junglers, and how do they make a champion viable in the jungle and not in mid lane or in a solo lane in top. And another funny thing is like Sion has an 8 passive or his passive, which barely anyone knows. A lot of people just ignore it, has a 40% chance to reduce 30, 40, 50 auto attack damage. I'm pretty sure that does work on jungle creeps, but despite the fact that he on occasion doesn't take damage from minions in the jungle, he's not seen it as a good jungler because he doesn't really clear, he needs more items, so on and so forth. But he's another person that you could potentially put in the jungler and have them be an AP jungler. As for the entire question, I think everyone kind of is said, oh, I don't know that Riot wants to do this. And I think that's a problem. Like, this would completely change the game around. What would it accomplish? Would it be a good thing? I don't even know. It is really, really hard to say. But I don't think we're going to see Riot going in that direction anytime soon.
Well, what if we gave a champion, or what if they made a champion that had a passive kind of like Victor's, where you get an item that starts with, and you could automatically build the item into something else right off the bat. Like you could turn it to a support right off the bat. You gain extra passive gold. You could take less damage from minions in the jungle, and you get one for each role. Do you think that would be too overpowered to have something like that? To it would force a single champion into a whole bunch of different roles, or do you still think they would just end up being DPS no matter what?
Well, I'll tell you one thing that I'd like to see, and that is different support items. And I think this has been mentioned in a few different places. But the support items are you're basically locked in to certain GP10s, and that's it. And so when they come down to it, where you get specific items, I really believe that they should start making items for supports that give them a little bit of variety, whether it's preventing damage a little more, that doesn't cost so much, some other there's definitely some imagination that could be involved here that I think would really help. And that goes along with what you were saying. And oh, by the way, I wanted to throw in there, a little something about Nunu pushing the top lane, don't you?
Yeah, Nunu's a bitch at the top lane.
Sorry, but I think that there are things that can be minor tweaks, because I really feel like that Riot is so they're so happy with where the game is right now, considering they have 100 champions, over 100 champions now, and the really nice balance of the competitive scene as it is now, that I'm not sure they're going to be open to a whole lot of massive changes, but I think there's little tweaks here and there that this kind of discussion could really spark, that I'm hoping that Riot could listen to.
Kind of on that subject, and I don't really mean to change it too much, and sorry, Tom, we can get back to you in a second, but I was reading a Zyphorus post the other day. Zyphorus is one of the design team Reds. He created Ribbon and Vladimir, Nautilus, and some others, Renekton as well, so if you like those champions, you should be a fan of him. But he also gives very detailed posts on the forums, and I like reading them. But one of the recent things he said is, well, if you have a champion that can survive in top lane right now, they're essentially overpowered, and they, champions that are sent top lane are overpowered, are the stronger champions in the game. They're viable up there because they're able to snowball their lanes. If they get a kill, suddenly they can really take over. And so he was saying they're going to look into changing that come into Season 3, but as of now, they don't want to change anything drastic because the championships are coming up. So I think that's another thing to consider. Like Hornet was saying, Riot's very happy with the game from a competitive standpoint. Like, that's something apparently they're going to focus on, top laners in general, but nothing is going to happen for a good couple of months, and by a good couple I mean probably like 4 or 5, insofar as any sort of real overhaul.
I completely agree. No, go ahead,
I still
Tom.
reserve the right that support characters are the most overpowered ones in the game. They don't need items to do anything good.
I wish that were the case for what they could build, though. I wish it just wasn't, the same GP10 items that they always seem to be building to, get the gold they need to get items that help them during the late game. It's like Heart of Gold to Shurelia's is the most common thing you'll find on support, and I'm not sure when it's not built. Like if the game goes long enough. Those type of things. I wish they could find more variety for that, and I think they could actually make something like that of a change before Season 2 is done. I just don't think they want to, because I don't think they want to change the game as it is until the Season 2 champion is crowned.
Well,
I think what they could do is they could take a lesson from games like Dota, to be completely honest. There are characters in Dota who aren't your typical support character because they don't have a heal or they don't have a crowd control or something, but they support in some other way. And a lot of the items in Dota we've seen it already with stuff like Locket of the Iron Solari, where, it'll give you a momentary shield. There are items in Dota like a buckler, which will improve the armor in an area for a couple seconds, or the mechanism, which lets off an AoE heal in the middle of a team fight, which would be interesting paths for a game like League of Legends to go down, but also you have to, I guess, keep in mind the fact that people could be running heal as a summoner spell, and if you make an item that does it, well, then heal's completely negated and stuff like that. So, to be completely honest, I think some of the things limiting support champions are actually summoner spells that everybody can run.
Yeah, that's a good point, too.
Well, I think there's summoner spells being an issue. I really feel like they're, supports, even if you gave them a ton of items to build, they're never going to get the gold to build said items. So I love playing support. I don't think there's really a lack of choices. I mean, that being said, I always build the exact same thing. I always try to rush Aegis, then try to get Shurelia's Reverie. I don't like Locket of the Iron Solari, but it's like, when I'm a jungler, I always rush 2 GP10 too, and normally go for Frozen Heart after that. If I'm a top lane, there's very, very little diversity in every single role as to what items you buy. And like any little tweak to items will change that up. But if you're an AD carry, you either go that Trinity Force route or that iEdge route. If you're an AP carry, now there have been some more changes with Athene's Unholy Grail coming in, with Abyssal Scepter becoming more popular. But in general, there's not a lot of options for items, but there are a lot of different champions, and I feel like someone mentioned this before, where they should expand the item selection and kind of cool it on the champions. The problem is making items isn't going to bring them in any more money, so that certainly has to be a consideration from Riot.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, speaking of Riot and their money and, also new champions, this is a fantastic segue for the next topic here. We had talked a little bit about Diana last week, and I believe that's what sparked this previous conversation we had, because last week we had talked about her originally coming out to be in the jungle. They wanted an AP jungler, and that's what they tested her internally as, and now we've seen her being played mid quite a bit, and so TR kept saying last week, she's OP, she's OP, she's OP, and Tom, on the other hand, kept saying, oh, I don't really think she's that good. I don't like her that much. And the more and more I play her, and the more I see her played, I have to continually disagree with you, Tom. So have you changed your stance, or do you still not think she's a very good champion?
I think it's interesting because we were having a little bit of a discussion about this. I was having a discussion with a couple people, actually. And what the general consensus is she is a powerful mid lane champion. I think she's pretty good in the mid lane. I think she's pretty good in the jungle, and I think she's great in the top lane because she just has a kit that can do so many different things. When you analyze her kit, though, and you look at her AP ratios, it's not that great. You look at her and you're like, okay, well, she has a Q, which is kind of easy to dodge because you could just stand next to her, basically, and it'll dodge it. She has,
You can still hit somebody, though, straight up with the Q. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're standing right next to her, you still hit her.
But what the thing is, I'm saying, you look at her kit as a whole, it doesn't look that overpowered. I think her highest ability power ratio is 0.6, which isn't that high considering we have people with like a 1.1 and a 1.0 ability power ratio. I think Annie has better ratios than Diana, to be completely honest, and we don't see Annie being dominant all over the place. The one thing that I found out after I see what you did there while we were looking at Scarra playing her in the jungle, which is very interesting because Scarra usually plays mid lane anyway. And the one thing that I found out that makes Diana survive in every single lane is her W.
It makes her extremely tanky.
The fact that her W rewards you for being an Optimus Tom idiot is ridiculous. The W, you activate it, you get a shield. You flash into the opponent, it hurts them, and you get a second shield. That is the stupidest thing ever. It's like you're playing Mario Kart and you get the 3 green shells, and since you can't aim, you just run into other people and you get rewarded for that kind of play style. That's exactly what it is, and that if you have a problem with Diana, that's where it comes from. If you think she's overpowered, that's where it comes from. Have I changed my stance on the champion? A little bit. I don't think she's super, super overpowered, but put in the hands of someone as reckless as, say, like maybe a Reginald, or as reckless as... I want to see someone like Alex Ich play Diana in the mid lane, because I think those people could really take advantage of the fact that all she has to do is just stand next to somebody and destroy them.
I think you're forgetting about a key point here, and that's her passive. Her passive, when she's got like a death cap and a Rylai's or any other, maybe just a blasting wand, she's got about 300 to 400 AP, and that pretty much almost all of that stacks onto her passive. And now, when you jump right in, you Q somebody, you jump in, you get 2 auto attacks off, and a third. The burst damage, not to mention from her shield, her Q, the jump, 2 jumps, and her auto attack, they can't do anything in return to kill you.
And the other thing is, you're like, oh, well, her AP ratios aren't that good. Well, she has the 0.6 on her as auto attack, like Adam's saying, Phonophobia is saying. The 0.8 on her Q, which is good, and it only has a 6-second cooldown. That's not bad. It's very, very hard to dodge at close range. Like at max range, if you start, learning how to dodge it, move towards them, move to the left, move away from the arc, essentially, you'll have a better chance at it. But, if you're right next to them, you're not dodging that. The shield, 0.6 overall. And the ultimate, the thing with the ultimate is, it's a 0.6, but you can do it twice, or you can do it once, then wait, 4 to 6 seconds, depending on whether you have blue buff or not, and then you can, do it again, and then you can just keep on stringing that together with crescent strikes, or, even if you just do it twice in a row, then you're going to have, a 1.2 ability power ratio at level 6, and going on throughout the game. That's a pretty good ratio for an AP champion. And I was thinking about this. I was thinking, okay, what really makes a mid champion good at snowballing games? Obviously, she has no trouble farming. That's great. She's pretty low mana cost, so she can keep farming mid lane. But what makes her so potent, that she can go down bottom lane and, kill people and then come back to lane and be fine? Well, one of the things that always occurs to me is, if my opposing middle went down to bottom lane, they might have used flash and they might have used their ultimate. And I see this happen in professionals too. Reginald, for instance, did a really good job taking advantage of this in the last game I watched him play. I forget the situation. Essentially, he was Morgana against an Ahri or someone, and they went down bottom. But as soon as they came back to lane, he's like, oh, you don't have ultimate, you don't have flash, I'm going to flash in, use my ultimate, and kill you. And so that is, tends to be a really big thing, and champions with really low cooldowns on ultimates are great for roaming around and great for mid lane because, Ahri has a really low cooldown. She can go bottom, and then she gets back in lane. She's only without her ultimate for 20 seconds. Morgana, kind of the same deal, as opposed to other champions who have a bit higher cooldown. But with Diana, her cooldown ranges from 20 seconds to 12 seconds. So, that is more than once every wave. The wave's coming in at 30 seconds. She can keep on spamming that, all throughout the day. So it's not even, it's an ultimate in the sense that it does good damage and that it has, great utility. But, as far as the cooldown is concerned, it's just part of her regular rotation.
I think the thing that bothers me the most is when she gets to mid-game, when she has a few items, and she clears a wave really quickly, it is so hard, even with a good gank, to actually kill her. Mm-hmm. She just pops her W and is able to survive most burst. I think the only time, and this is me playing jungler and her in lane, and of course she's having one of the positions where she's getting the most farm, either mid or top lane. So she's going to be one of the more leveled champions in the mid game as it is. But then when you try and gank her, even with your coordination with whoever might be with you, to attempt to burst her is so tough. I only did it successfully once with a LeBlanc, who obviously is a very strong mid-game champion to begin with. So that combination actually worked, but I can tell you numerous other times and numerous other champions that it just even wasn't possible, even when you catch her out of position. So, that's what bothers me, I think, the most with her, is once she gets a few items, that W has a little bit of ability power added to that shield. It's devastating.
It's stupid.
It is stupid. I agree. It's to the point of being stupid, and to the point where I'm asking that champ to be banned in every game I play.
Oh yeah.
And I don't normally have to do that for any champion, but this is definitely a something that's long lasting right now.
Well, it's not.
The interesting thing with her, the interesting thing with her in lane is a lot of the junglers that we see now are more utility junglers. I know Ponophobia and I did a Sheen Prox interview at Law of Mortis earlier on, a week. I guess it was a week ago now at this point. But he was talking about how these utility jungles are coming in and building more supporty kind of items. But one of the things is, there are Maokais, there are Rammus, there are champions like this that have hard crowd control that will be able to usually lock down a champion in that mid lane. Diana's shield punishes people with close crowd control like that. And she's like, "Oh, you're gonna twisted advance me? I'm gonna get double shielded, and you can't burst me down."
Right.
It's not
right. Amumu was one example of I couldn't kill her, and that was blowing ultimate as well to keep her in place.
It's not really a mystery as to why this is happening. It's pretty simply her shield. She maxes second. It has the most, I think, base health of any shield that I can think of in the game. It's more than Janna's, more than Orianna's, provided you get the double proc. But of course, if you're getting attacked, you're going to get the double proc. There's no doubt about that.
What about Sion?
Sion probably has more. I didn't look that one up, but it's.
Oh, I'll be looking.
Yeah.
300 at max level plus 0.9 ability for Sion.
Yeah, so this one's 310 plus 0.4. So it is less scaling, but higher, just slightly higher on the base. So I guess Sion could
let's also say that it's not for damage either.
Right.
Diana's shield is not for damage, whereas Sion's is. That's what I was gonna
right,
say.
and you can also gank.
Well, it kind of is.
Yeah, it kind of is. It still does quite a bit.
Well, another
It does both. It shields her twice and it deals damage. It's stupid.
yeah. With Scion though, you can it's easy to time him if you're going to go in for a gank. Like they're going to use the shield to farm essentially. So that's probably not something you can do against Diana because you don't really need to use Pale Cascade, which is the shield to farm. So I mean that's an issue. Her base shield really really strong, scales pretty well. And, it would be really hard to gank an Orianna or Janna because of their shields as well, except they don't level them until much later. They generally have to level up their other two skills so they can keep, give themselves a little bit of damage output, whereas Diana doesn't really have that dilemma. Seems like Moonfall's a 1-point wonder until later on in the game. There's very little, I don't know, maybe if you're jungling and ganking a lot, you might want to go multiple points into Moonfall, but I don't see otherwise why you'd go that route as opposed to Crescent Strike and Pale Cascade as your two priority skills.
What does Moonfall give when you upgrade it?
More slow, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
Cooldown goes down 2 seconds each level, and the slow percentage goes up by 5% each level. So it starts at 35% slow and ends at 55.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I only pretty much use it to keep somebody close to me. I'm not using it for the slow. It's just an added bonus. Oh, you're gonna walk away? Come here. I want you for my shield.
Yeah, I mean, even when I've
Pretty
jungled,
much, because the shield's stupid.
yeah, when I've jungled her, I mean, yeah, that's like maybe I put 1 point, until late in the Moonfall, but.
I'm actually with Tom.
I think her
It's stupid.
W is sort of like Scion's, though, in a way. Like, granted, you'd probably be stupid if you're playing mid to just blow your W just to farm a wave. But I mean, that's kind of like with Scion, you attack him when his shield is on cooldown, and her shield actually has like a slightly longer cooldown by like 2 seconds. So I think it's still tough because, like I said, Scion. That's how you farm: is you hit W and then blow up a wave. And with her, you don't really need to do that. But it's the same
You
kind
hit
of
W when
principle
you
as
get
just
ganked.
attack her when the shield is on cooldown.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the thing is with Diana, though, with Scion, you use the shield to farm, you're going to be using it a lot. With Diana, you use the shield. The only time you're going to get Diana to proc her shield when she's not getting ganked is when you bait it out and she thinks she could kill the mid lane. So most of the time, you're probably going to trade 1-for-1 in that situation because Diana's going to burst down your mid lane by the time Maokai starts the animation for Twisted Advance. And then hopefully Maokai can burst down Diana in that amount of time. And because of her kit, because she was being toted around as a less powerful Akali when she first came out, which now I would argue to say that she's as good, if not better, than Akali in certain situations, especially in the mid lane. She has so much burst potential on her that she will wind up killing one of the two members in a gank, and by just having that other person have to get so close to her in order to lock her down in crowd control or attempt to even try to kill her, giving her that extra HP through a shield is just insane. And then if you want to get into runes and masteries and start talking effective HP, you have two magic damage dealers predominantly coming out of the jungle with like a Maokai, and in the mid lane, even like with let's say like an Annie or a LeBlanc or somebody, you just build 42 magic resistance in the beginning, you have extra HP and the shield. All of a sudden Diana has about like 1,200 effective HP like level 4, and how are you going to burst down all of that?
And she also
And
Yeah, I
Tom,
think
help.
one of the problems, though, I was just reading her ability. The spheres last for 4 seconds, so I think that's partially part of the problem. Because if you could just kind of stay out of melee range, and I don't know, like say Gangplank ganks her and hits her with a Q or something, slows her. But 4 seconds, it's like any jungler is basically going to want to get point blank, and if she pops her shield, she just 4 seconds, a gank is over. So it would seem like maybe she'd be more balanced if they came up with a way so that it wasn't like guaranteed that you would get the double shield every single time. But
I just want to say, Tom, help me out with this, but it's also pretty telling when the semifinal in the OGN tournament, which by the way is being run in Korea, where they had a best of 5 between Azubu Blaze and Azubu Frost, and when it goes to the 5th and deciding game, they go to blind pick. In the blind pick, Diana was chosen and dominated the game. I forget who picked her. That's why I wanted your
No, Frost picked up Diana. I forget who was playing her.
I forget who was
but
playing her, right. That's what I was trying to remember.
On top of that, they also pulled a lane switch in every single lane, and Diana was top against like Vladimir. The AP, the AD and support were in the middle, and then the top laner was on bottom. It was just like
it was a crazy game.
Messed up.
It was all kinds of crazy game, but the Diana just dominated. I mean, that told me right there. Okay, the pro players have figured it out. You know, it might be time for Riot to figure out the adjustment they need to make.
Oh no, she definitely needs adjustments. She definitely does. Like, there's no doubt about it. But I mean, like, piggybacking on the point that Sotera was talking about, how Riot said a top lane champion. If you have a top lane champion that can dominate its lane, that's pretty much overpowered. I feel like that's like the big testament to Diana right there is, you know, they're big tanky AD bruisers that could do well against her in the top lane, but if you have a good top lane matchup with Diana, it's just insane. You can't stop her. And that's what wound up happening in the Azubu game. They lane swapped up and sent her top against a Vladimir. She just decimated Vladimir and nothing else can happen.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I couldn't imagine beating Vladimir against that. It would be brutal. You can't poke her out of lane until after 6. And by then, she's already got enough farm and gold that she isn't getting poked out of nothing.
I mean, go ahead and pull when you're trying to get away, and then she's going to W back, and yeah.
She'll just Q you and rush to you after that.
She's
already on cooldown.
I wouldn't be surprised if she could just pull Vladimir back out of pool with her move.
That's what I was thinking.
So stupid.
Exactly.
Just pulls him right up out of pool.
No, you stay up here.
You get feared by Nocturne, you get pulled by me. That's right.
Oh, it's the most annoying thing.
Nocturne fears Diana, and he runs away. That's what happens.
We don't have like a reverse spell shield, unfortunately.
No, she pulls the moonlight in darkness and, you know, wins out.
Yeah,
that's how that
there
works.
you go. There you go.
So why don't we talk about some of these pro events that are going to be going on? Last weekend we had Gamescom, which was the European finals, and now we'll have MLG Raleigh. And, of course, there was the Azubu Blaze versus Azubu Frost for the OGN. So there's just a ton of stuff going on. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to really watch much of it, so I'm not going to be able to comment. But I'm going to leave that open for the floor for the caster.
I'll let Tom go first here.
All right, so I guess we'll talk about Gamescom first, because that's what I see on the sheet over here. So, spoiler alerts right now, in case you guys haven't seen any of it, even though it's been replaying on Twitch TV for the past, 7 days straight. But anyway.
You ruined it on the Law of Mortis interview.
This is, well, I've learned from my Law of Mortis interview. I actually had a couple people be like, why'd you do spoilers? Blah, 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 blah. You screwed it up. I'm like, whatever. Anyway. So, we had a very interesting setup. We had the top 8 teams in Europe coming together. Of course, qualifies them for the Season 2 finals. The top 3 teams got in. And interestingly enough, we had M5 in first place, which I'm pretty sure everybody expected. But the second place and third place teams kind of surprised us because CLG EU took third place because they got knocked down into that fourth place match by SK Gaming, who hasn't really done anything since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
and let me say this, because I am one of the SK detractors that, okay, SK's keeping Ocelot around because his brand, and he brands himself, and he actually brings publicity to SK Gaming and their site and everything else. SK's been around forever, but if they really wanted a good team, they would ditch Ocelot. I was dead in that camp. I have been in that camp for ever. I probably have spent many a days there. But I will say...
Did you pitch a tent?
What's that?
Did you pitch a tent?
Yeah, tent, motorhome. I was linked up for power. I made my own internet connection. Oh, it was all set up. But let me just say that, and SK kept going through roster change after roster change. The best time for SK was actually when Snoope and Wicked, who are now with CLGEU, were actually members of that team, along with Candy Panda and SK and Nif, who's still currently on the team.
So the god of time.
Yeah. And this is a long time ago. What they finished second in China, they finished second in New York, I believe. And they were actually a really good team that just had some issues going on. And then the whole split happened, and ever since they have been rotating people in and out of this roster. SK's roster has probably been more rotation of players than I think any other roster of high magnitude that I can remember in my mind.
Or not.
Yeah, there's another one, but it was one of those things where, like, okay, Ocelot's just in this to support his family. He's not in this to actually compete. And then the whole laughter of it was they make a couple more changes. They ditch Candy Panda. They ditch Adrian, and then they pick up Young Buck and Sven. Then ditch them shortly afterwards and go back old school to pick up Aranaya and Yellow Star. By the way, for those of you who don't know, Aranaya and Ocelot were teammates a long, long time ago on SK and then split. This was like season 1. And then all of a sudden, for it all to be okay and Aranaya is back on the team again was like, okay, this is a last-ditched effort for everything and all the marbles. But you know what? When they cried on stage after beating CLGEU, I was so impressed that you knew how much he actually, like, I really felt like that was just the let out of energy of how badly they wanted it and how badly they wanted to be part of Season 3 and how badly everybody wants to have that for sure income that is going to salaried pro players for a league. I can't say that enough. Salaried pro players for a league. It's unheard of. It's amazing to me, and I am so impressed with how everybody really wanted it, but all the emotions came out and SK showed it, and I was completely impressed by their play.
You have to be really impressed with SK too, because that roster they ran at Gamescom had been practicing for maybe a month tops together. That was
if
it.
That.
They pulled an M5, and what they did was M5, when they go to an event, they get there a week early. And they sit there, they get used to jet lag, they practice, and et cetera, et cetera. SK did the same exact thing. I believe they got there about a week in advance, and they scrimmed nonstop with M5. They scrimmaged constantly every single day, and it really showed when they went super aggressive on CLGEU in the first game, denied them from getting a buff ever the entire game. They had timers, they had wards, they ran teleport. They just did not let CLGEU get a buff, period. And this on top of the fact that Ocelot was playing one of the most ridiculous Orianas I've seen for a very long time. Really, really made for like a really, really good showing. Unfortunately, they didn't really carry it over into the finals, and they pretty much got raffle stomped by M5 because M5 knew them and sent it out.
Right.
M5 had nothing to lose.
And by the way, Ocelot has played Oriana a lot. It's actually one of his favorite champions, and he was playing her at the very end of Season 1, beginning of Season 2 a lot, back when she was considered a normal AP mid champion. And then when they nerfed her, he dropped her and hadn't played her, but the truth is that she still was a decent mid, he just hadn't played her, so I'm not surprised that Oriana was brought back by him, and I'm not surprised at his play of Oriana. That part didn't actually surprise me at all. The part that really surprised me was the work they really put in to make it happen. It had always been that there's always drama issues, always things going on with SK, always reasons why, or excuses or things of why they didn't perform. Well, guess what? They stepped up, they performed when it mattered the most, and I can honestly say I'm now impressed by SK Gaming, which I could never have said prior to or since Snoop A and Wicked had left the team.
One thing I want to know is how come every single ability power mid player in the world, they think their quote-unquote secret tech champion is Twisted Fate. I don't know why. Everybody thinks that Twisted Fate is like this secret tech champion, and nobody can play him unless you're Asian. Like, hands down. You just can't. Like, Reginald, I love you, man, but stop playing Twisted Fate. Just stop.
Takashi can he?
Takashi's Asian. That's why.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I missed the.
Takashi's like the one exception in the North American scene that I think I've seen a fairly decent Twisted Fate out of. Probably is going to yell at me, but probably your Twisted Fate's not as good as your Kennen. So, there's that. So, I don't know. Twisted Fate is just this champion. Because they were the casters and everybody were hyping up Ocelot has this secret tech champion that's not all too secret, but he's going to bust it out if they're losing, blah, blah, blah. And he picks Twisted Fate. And I'm like, God damn it. Stop playing Twisted Fate, people. It's not good. No, stop.
Yeah. It really does. I think it's all about anticipation of using the ult too. I mean, it really does require some real technical expertise as to when you're going to use it, how you're going to use it, and the timing of it to coordinate with your team. And I think it requires a lot of practice to pull it off. And I just don't think that anybody besides the Asian teams has really spent that time to coordinate it as well as they have. And I think that's probably the reason why. For instance, Reginald, haven't we heard that, he hasn't been practicing nearly as much as he probably should be, especially going into, some events recently. So if you're not on top of your game with Twisted Fate, he is definitely a champion that will not work for you.
And the one thing is, too, why would you pick Twisted Fate against a team like Azubu Blaze or a team like M5, who is known for roaming around and completely just ganking and dominating stuff? Twisted Fate is someone that wants to catch people out of position. Why would you pick up the champion that does nothing in late-game team fights against a team that's going to be grouped up around 10 minutes? It just does not make sense to me at all.
Yeah, I agree with that completely.
It's all because I saw M5 run it one time with an Urgot, and suddenly everyone said, "Oh, both these champions are OP. They beat us."
Pretty much. That's what happens, right? Like, someone runs it and completely dominates someone else, and now that champion's new OP. That's why I was upset that Shushay didn't do well with Evelyn, because I was waiting for it. I was really waiting for it.
Right. And I thought he was going to do well in the beginning. I watched some of that match. I was like, oh, okay, he's not doing too bad. He's got blue. Okay. Oh, he's dead.
By the way,
Optimus Tom's hopes and dreams.
There are two things I take away also from this tournament. One is that we're starting to see Gragas play again, which I love. Gragas is one of my favorite champions, and I love watching good Gragas play because I think he has, the extra mobility involved means he can get in and out of fights, and really takes a good talent to use the ultimate correctly, and good timing as well. And I really enjoy seeing that. But the other thing is that really strikes me is, and I'll have a slight spoiler alert here as well. We'll be coming out with some power rankings with GG Chronicle very soon, and I think they will be justified in that Moscow 5 dominated that tournament and has dominated for the last 3 months.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I don't even know. I don't even remember. TSM has dominated the North American scene to a lesser extent.
No, I wouldn't say dominated. They've done well in the North American scene.
Well, but think about
it hasn't been like a domination, like a 15-0 win like M5 has. You hardly ever see that,
Well, okay, but take every major North American tournament just on North American teams recently, and I think TSM has won it. IPL face-off.
Well, hold on a second. Let's also count for the fact that two of the better teams, Dignitas and CLG North America, were not around.
Okay, that's true. But even when they were, TSM still did win. They didn't win as convincingly, I agree. But they did win.
No, I kind of agree. I kind of agree with both of you. Like, TSM has the same kind of performance in the North American scene, but they're not as dominant as M5. If TSM went in and beat CLG NA like 3-0 in a final, I would say, okay, they're on the same level as M5. But CLG takes them to the last game of absolutely everything almost every single time.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I'm just saying that the level of domination by M5 recently is incredible, and I am in such anticipation for when the Season 2 championships happen in Los Angeles, because I want to see a final that's like Azubu Blaze versus M5, or whoever else might come out of the Korean scene versus M5. I want to see that matchup, and I cannot wait, because the Korean teams have been asking for it. That's the one team that they want to play. M5 has really become the targeted team of the world in my mind because of their absolute domination at the highest level.
Right. Speaking of the season 2 championships, I actually have I'm going to have Wrecker down here for those of you who may have played with us. You may know who Wrecker is, who we talked about him. But we're going to have a whole giant party this weekend, of a LAN party of 3 days of nothing but Super Bowl style League of Legends for that entire weekend.
That's really, really awesome.
Yeah, thanks
Not
for
Food, gonna have it on the big screen.
Is he actually going to know how to
sound.
smoke a cigar this time?
Well, I don't promise that. I mean, there may be other substances involved.
Well, of course, but I'm just wondering if you could actually teach him how to cut a cigar without it affecting Champion Select and Ranked 5. That's all I'm asking.
I'll pre-cut them all before he gets down here.
Pre-cut them so you don't have to worry about it. Nice.
But yeah, I definitely recommend anybody else who's really into this, because Raleigh is this weekend. We'll have the PAX showdown that'll be coming up next weekend, and then we'll have the Season 2 championships come October 13th or 16th. It's one 13th. Of those days. 13th. Okay, thank you. We'll have the Season 2 championships where we'll be walking to Season 3. Who will be crowned the winner of that? I definitely recommend anybody, if you guys go to bar crafts, bar scenes. I know there's some. I've heard of a couple up in Canada, New York, Los Angeles. There's Toronto. There's a few up there. If you guys can go and watch it like you would watch a sports game on a Saturday or UFC at night, definitely go watch it, or have all your friends over and try to turn it into a big event, because as you heard earlier, a lot of these teams are going to start to become salaried with Riot, and it's going to really turn into a sport. We're no longer esports, we're a sport, in my opinion.
Well, hold on there.
And this really helps to turn it into that.
We're still esports, but we are legitimate entertainment for people to watch in a sporting arena. I mean,
right.
that's what it's coming down to. And let me say, we have by the way, we have MLG Raleigh this weekend, which I think just became a whole lot more interesting because TSM and CLG are not attending. Which, by the way, the reason they're not attending is because the North American regionals are at PAX the next weekend. So this is the last opportunity for the rest of the North American teams to jump into that regional, which means there's a lot on the line to go to next weekend. And I think it just made it a whole lot more interesting because, like we said, a chance to be a salaried team during Season 3 and have your entire year covered for all expenses, everything, I think is huge. And if you've look at where if you've seen the tour of the house for Curse Gaming, I highly recommend it. If you haven't seen it, take a look at it on Curse's YouTube. That house is ridiculous. All the features they have for that.
They have more bathrooms than I do rooms in my
house.
house.
Exactly. They have more bathrooms than I do in my house as far as rooms go. Not just bathrooms, but more rooms. The pool, the bedrooms, the lavish. It's almost like. I was more interested in where Dwight Howard would buy a house, and kind of interesting. No, like Curse just bought a house that I think Dwight Howard would be happy to live in.
I'd be happy to rent the guest room.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was so impressed with the whole setup, but just think about the dreams of professional gamers at this point. Nothing like this has ever been done. There are only a very few who are involved with teams that are salaried by the teams themselves, but not this setup where the company that makes the game is going to salary the professional players for a year. And not to mention, we still don't know the rumored number for Season 3. We've had numbers thrown out of all kinds. I've heard 25 million. I've heard 15 million. That it's whatever it's going to be. It's going to be large and bigger than we've ever known before for professional gaming. So support your teams, guys, because this is going to turn into a whole new level, and maybe the dream of the Riot founders will actually come true as to what they really want for this to become.
The sad thing in my eyes, though, is still the Season 3 championship bracket is still going to be the same amount of prize money as Peyton Manning's contract.
Yeah, but as of right now, I'd put this back to, imagine football back in the 90s when Herschel Walker was paid $2 million or something like that. or the first. I still remember the first $1 million contract, if I'm not mistaken, in baseball. Like, it took them many years and many more opportunities to market themselves as a sport for it to come out, whereas League of Legends has grown so fast that the baby steps that we've taken have been actually more large steps that really advancing everything as we've gone along. So,
well, guys, that is definitely something that we should all keep our eyes open for. I'm very excited for all these tournaments coming up. Speaking of the tournament, again, we keep bringing it up. Well, first of all, I want to roll this back. The Trinity Force Podcast, you guys have been listening to us for, this will be our 42nd episode. We are quickly coming up episode 50. We came up actually the week after the season 2 championships. We'll be on episode 50.
What timing? What good timing is that?
Yeah, so assuming we don't skip a week, we'll be on 50 episodes. We've only skipped maybe 3 or 4 weeks total. I think maybe 4 weeks total.
No, we skipped 1 week.
Out of all these. Yeah, no. Oh, yeah, what do you mean we've only skipped 1 week?
We only skipped 1 week.
Have we really only skipped 1 week?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, we've only skipped 1 week
and
since
I had
we
to
started
deliver
this
that
podcast.
dire news. Oh.
Yeah, you're right. We've only skipped. I could have swore we skipped some other ones, but I was thinking like when I went on vacation. No, you guys kept it going strong.
You were probably thinking of all the weeks we phoned it in.
Yeah. I'm trying to phone it in now. Hold on. But I want to let you get the listeners know the Trinity Force Podcast, GG Chronicle, we are all moving toward esports central right now. Everything we're going to do is going to have some kind of esports with us. So we are going to try to keep this podcast centered around the beginner, the intermediate player, but we will definitely be talking every week about some kind of esports. Whether it takes up the entire podcast, whether it takes up a half an hour of it, be ready for it. I'm just kind of forewarning everybody that listens to this. There will be a lot of esports talk in the future, and we're doing it because the scene is blowing up so quickly and so rapidly, and every one of us is involved in that at some point. We love teaching you guys. We've had so much fun for these past 42 episodes teaching you guys how to play the game, and we're going to continue to do it, but we want to continue to show you what it's like at the pro level.
I think it works out pretty well too, because how many times do you see it's the same kind of equivalent, I came on a lot later on in the show than everybody else, except for maybe Soter. But from what I gathered, the premise was a bunch of guys sitting around drinking beers talking about League of Legends. And now that League of Legends is becoming like a legitimate, like we said, a legitimate sport, a really big esport, it's the same as if you went to a bar with a bunch of buddies and started talking about football or fantasy football or something like that. So,
Good point.
Nothing lost, only gained.
And let's not shy away from the one thing that we will never get rid of is the fact that we will always take your emails, calls, suggestions, questions, those sort of things, and we will get to them. We promise. It may take us a little bit longer. As more recent episodes, we had to stockpile them all up and put it in one big episode for you one time, but I promise we will get to them. So feel free to still send us that information. We will always get to it when we can. It's just one of those things where, yes, I think they're going to go hand in hand, and we've always had a little bit of an esports theme, but it's never dominated our podcast. I think now it's going to be a little bit more of a thing that we end up talking about. Maybe not for the entire thing, but definitely for a majority of our podcast.
Yeah, so guys, please, get ready for that. Please enjoy it. Share it with us. If you guys have been loving the esports talk, if you guys have a question, just like you heard this voicemail this week, this was probably one of the best voicemails we received, in the history of the podcast, because it was very well thought out. I mean, all our voicemails have been fantastic. I've had fun listening to them, but I just love the in-depth conversation that it brought up and how well thought it was. So, fantastic job with your voicemail this week. Sorry that I can't remember your name again. But guys, keep sending us voicemails and all that good stuff. We're here for you. Of course, there's 5 of us because Tom is gone every other week, and we love having the 2200 guy on here. Actually, are you 2200?
Oh my
right
goodness,
now?
no.
Get the fuck off my podcast.
I'm checking right now. What is Soter's ELO? Let's see here.
This is awkward.
Oh God, Optimus Tom's another one saying ELO. Oh Jesus.
I round up. It looks like 21,000.
Yep, rounding up.
He's doing well.
Rounding up 2100. So.
Oh, I loved it when I could introduce you as 2200, but you are just so terrible.
I'm
at
sorry.
This game.
I'll work on it.
Wow.
I will work on it every day.
Why is your ranked 3v3 team almost as good as your solo?
Oh my god, I've actually never played on that ranked 3v3 team. I'm just like on it for fun.
Wait, they're like what? 1900, 2000?
17, 19.
Yeah. Which is actually like pretty high apparently for a ranked 3v3 team. But
I just got really excited. I'm like, oh, I'm going to get to watch Soter play 3v3.
unfortunately not. I do not know Twisted Tweedline. For the life of me, I cannot figure out how to play that game, but a lot of my friends apparently on my other ranked teams do, so that works.
Dragon spawns every 5 minutes. Get characters that can move around walls. Tanky characters with an AP. GG.
Yeah, it's too much for me. Too much for me to handle.
Well, you're not on the first page. You're not on the first page of Twisted Treeline ranking.
Oh man,
sad to say.
I'll tell them to work on it.
You're on like
what's the
the
highest
third.
Twisted Train? What's the highest right now?
The highest right now is 2014.
Wow, just cracking
Jesus
the 2K barrier.
Christ.
That's the sad part, though. It took a whole season to get there.
No, but I'm sure those queue times have to be monstrous too.
Yeah.
You ain't
You
joking.
guys
win
are
one
ranked
ELO.
168th in 3v3 team.
And I'm sure every point that they gain, they move up 7 spots.
Yeah, pretty much. No, they'll move up like a good 25 slots if they get like 3 ELO.
Nice.
You know, the funny part is they probably have to wait in queue for 3 hours before they can get a match, and then when they finally do and get a spot up, it's like 25 spots. But then, 3.5 hours now you wait in quue.
Right.
That sounds a lot like World of Warcraft.
That would be the same kind of thing if he got himself back up to 2200 and tried queuing.
I'll be back up there very shortly.
Do you still get Skara, Odd One, Azingi, all the people that are like 25 to 22?
Yeah, depending on duo queues, you certainly can get them still. Like I played with St. Vicious today. I think he's like 24, 25. And it was just because he was duo queuing with a Liquid at the time. So yeah, certainly does happen.
Wait, was he playing Rengar?
No, he played. What did he play? He played Jungle Garen. That's what he played.
Was he
No,
on your
unfortunately. Well, I don't know. He didn't do very good that game, but we lost anyway. So it's unfortunate.
Well, he is Jungle Garen.
So when people see that Janna in the bottom lane, just know it's Sotir and he's part of GG Chronicle.
Or if it's Corki.
Yeah.
I don't even know. I haven't even looked. What are you playing recently?
Janna, Corki, and Udyr.
No, actually,
top 3
I only
champions.
play Nunu and Yorick now.
I don't know. It says you have 189 Janna, 138 Corki, and 76 Udyr. Your other ones aren't even close to that.
Yeah, well, I don't play them as of late.
Recently.
I'm diversifying because I kept on getting made fun of by everyone at GGC.
Excuse me. You have a couple Yorick and Nunu games, but then I see Janna at the bottom. So.
Yeah, the only Yorick I know that builds Manamune.
Really?
Right there, 2200.
What,
I
really?
haven't seen him that often.
Everyone builds Manamune on him.
Must not see him. You get Manamune and Frozen Heart, so you deal the deeps.
Yeah, actually, the build I've been going with is Zion Spartan's build, where he actually builds Frozen Mallet, which I never thought to build on him before, but works out pretty well. Apparently, his
I can't help but notice that every single game you've lost, you didn't build the Glacial Shroud instead of the Frozen Mallet.
Okay.
So.
Well, here's something that really is like kind of one of my pet peeves. So like we have like a lot of information from these new sites like ELO BUFF and LOL King that are like, oh, well, if you build this item, people who build this item win like 45% or like 85% of their game, we'll say. And that's obviously an exaggeration, but I mean, essentially, people who build these items win a lot of their games. But I'm like, oh, every main item you build, you win like 70% of your games. And it's because obviously, if you have enough money to finish your items, you win. Like the only items with losing records are like parts of items like chainmail vest. If you build a chainmail vest, you only have a 47% chance to win because it just means you didn't finish your item.
Oh man, I actually had somebody on when I did a review of ELO BUFF and we did that video in the article. People were complaining to me about that because I was like, oh well, you see like people who bought a Deathfire Grass win like 100% of the time, but people who buy a Kage's Lucky Pick only win like X% of the time. They're like, that's because people don't get a chance to finish it, and blah, there's other people that build that item instead, and blah blah blah. That doesn't work.
Right.
It's like, hey man, I'm just doing a video here.
Well, just for everyone out there, they are kind of misleading in that sense, so that we're like, oh, I have to start building these items, but really, those websites, I haven't seen any website that has a good indicator of what you should build as of yet.
The only indicator I really like is the solo queue plus minus percentage based on champions. Yeah. I think that really does tell a tale of how champions are doing in the current, setup and how they're doing in a team comp. I think it really sets the bar sometimes for telling you how well champions are doing overall. I really like that setup. But yeah, other than that, statistics can be shifted any way you like it to make it look any certain way. So yeah. Don't believe all the statistics you hear, kids.
Time to play solo queue, Evelyn.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sushi did it. Why not?
Yeah, come on, man. And you know what I'll have to do? I'll have to wear my Kennen hoodie and everything too, so I could run around like that.
You should. You
need to. Yeah. All right. Well, guys, if you guys have a voicemail and email you want to berate Sotir, you can find out how thanks to Auslander.
Give us a call at 203-49-FORCE, 203-493-6723. You can also text us at that number, or send us an email at feedback@trinityforcepodcast.com.
Auslander, I need some pep in this, man. You gotta sell it.
Or you can follow us on Twitter, T-Force Podcast, GG Chronicle, or you can follow the Banhammer at SK Pone.
So, guys, if you want to contact us this week, I'm going to show you how it's done right now. You can find us at 203-49-FORCE. That is 203-496-723. You can text that number. I check that every day. I will see your text, and we'll use it for you. You can email us, feedback@trinityforcepodcast.com. Of course, you can always find us on Twitter, at TForcePodcast or at GG Chronicle. That is how you sell it, Auslander. I'm going to teach you how to do this. So, you guys, you can see us next week. We'll be around here with episode number 43. Don't forget to check out Sheen Procs. We're not doing it weekly anymore because pros are really hard to get a hold of.
Gosh, yeah.
Especially when they're all at tournaments.
So yeah, Takashi, he was supposed to show up, and he stood us up twice now.
Yeah, so while I'm at Raleigh, oh, by the way, guys, MLG Raleigh is this weekend, so if you guys want to tune in and watch, it's going to be awesome, because myself and Monte Cristo are both going to be casting and doing interviews and everything as well, so make sure you tune in and troll me in chat.
Yeah. You're staying with him in the same room, right?
I actually don't know the room assignments right now, but if that's the case, I'm going to be all by myself for like 12 hours, because he doesn't get there until like 11 o'clock at night, and I get there at 12 in the afternoon on Thursday.
Will you steal his rings?
Don't let him wear them.
Make sure he remembers to touch his
tie
ring
his
to
tie
his
for him too, please.
I will definitely steal his rings of power. I will wear them myself instead. He'll be like, I can't find my rings. I'll be
hilarious.
Like, I don't know where they are. And like right before we go live, I'll just slip them all on. And I'll be like,
yes.
And then it'll be too late for him to say anything.
It'll
be awesome. It'll be too late for him to say anything when you're on air. Like, he doesn't want to make a big stink about it.
Are those my rings? I'll be like, no, these belong to Doran.
Knowing Monty, he'll have to make some snide comment while they're live, while they're sitting in the casting booth, if that's when it happens. Knowing him, he'll have to say something.
I see you got some rings to make yourself as good as me.
Yeah.
Listen, not all of us can have a haunting guys like Monte Cristo.
What?
I said that last time. Okay. Candid story time. The producers at MLG, since Monty was getting made fun of for his rings so much, they asked him to take them off beforehand for the last MLG prize fight. And Monty was like, but, and he wanted to put up a fight about it, but then just decided not to. And so like I pat him on the back. I'm like, it's okay, Monty. I'll just tell all the viewers that you sold your Doran's rings for this lovely haunting guys you have on now. And he's like, oh, that's a really great joke. It's like a lol joke, and everybody's cracking up. I'm like, Monty, I called you ugly.
Poor Monty.
I can't believe they actually made him take it off. I didn't know that. That is funny.
Oh, yes, this is great.
That's all right. I had to keep my lip ring in to offset the fact that Quickshot has an eyebrow piercing, and I'm the only one that got made fun of. So,
you should read the Twitch chat. The Twitch chat. Who are these virgins on the stream?
No, the own chat was the best, where they're like, "Oh no, not that nerd virgin, 15-year-old Optimus Tom. Oh no!" And then like, Holy Spork and Nugs the Pirate tweet the picture of like their son Henry Jarvin watching me and Monty. So I retweet it. I'm like, this one's for own chat. I get all the babes.
Yeah.
So yeah,
hey,
you guys,
just remember, Grandma still love you.
If you're gonna watch MLG Raleigh, Grandma's also love me. Let's not even get started on that. But if you guys are gonna watch MLG Raleigh and you wanna have a lot of fun, I do interact with everybody who tweets at me. So
yeah.
All right, guys, that'll do it for this week. I'm cutting it off, cutting you guys off. No more beer. It's 2:00.
What?
It's 2 o'clock. No more
No,
beer.
no, no. I'm just surprised that you're the one saying no more beer.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm drinking wine, so fuck it.
Manly time.
That's right. Well, guys, we'll see you all next week for Trinity Force episode number 43. The Trinity Force Podcast is brought to you by ggchronicle.com. Esports news, coverage, opinion. Join the League of Legends community at ggchronicle.com.